Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim, and our guest today is Scott. So, Scott, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Dan. Live in Dubuque, Iowa. I'm sort of a transplant from the Northwest, still getting used to the weather here in the Midwest, but I am a product development coach with licensing products, venturing products. We have a membership program, have a company called Inventors Edge, where we help other inventors bring products to market in a multitude of ways. I'm the inventor of SWAT and Scoop, and we're featured now on the Buy It Now show that's just came out on Amazon as of October 30th on Amazon Prime.
Awesome. So I'm curious in terms of product development, and I think it's something that has intrigued a lot of people since the era of Shark Tank. So is that something that you've always done, or kind of how did you get into that?
Yeah, great question. It's one of the, like a lot of inventors, ever since I was a little kid, like just seeing products and wondering, you could easily make this better, or wondering why certain products don't exist. And so it's always been something that I've done, I feel like my whole life. I remember a long time ago eating a hot dog in the kitchen with my dad, and I'm like, why couldn't there be like cheese inside of this? Because we would put cheese on top, and then all of a sudden it's like Hormel or whoever, comes out with like the hot dog with cheese inside. Or, I used to do a lot of BMXing and also motocross. And I thought, why couldn't you have a mini version of shocks on the front and even in the middle of a BMX bike? And then it's like 5 years later, mountain bikes come out. I don't know. It's just one of those things, see opportunities, and started getting more serious about it, probably in my mid 30s to late 30s, and decided to jump in and really get more serious about it, start really learning, how do you do this? Where do you go? What's the right way to do it? And I got connected to a company called InventRight, which is a fantastic company. I was a student for a few years with InventRight and learned how to do the licensing model. And then I coached with InventRight for about 8 years until this month. And I decided to go out on my own and kind of do things in a little different way to help people still help with licensing, but really focused on venturing and really helping people bring products to market that way.
Awesome. So in terms of products, right? Because like obviously many people want Shark Tank, and there's some very good products or some products that, as Kevin says, you put it like in the back of the barn and shoot it, right? So it's like, how do you know if the product is something of value and merit versus something that, has no value and doesn't make sense to actually go and create?
Yeah, that's a great question. After 8 years of coaching over 500 people, like that question comes up all the time. Like, how do I know if I have a winner? How do I know if this is marketable? And the reality is, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't say for sure one product's going to fly and the other one won't. There's some products where I thought, oh, this is absolutely gonna go, and it doesn't for whatever reason. And others I might be thinking, yeah, it's going to be a little harder, and it explodes. So I don't judge products that way, but I can look at a product and say, hey, if you're looking at licensing, you are in a great category for licensing. There's a lot of innovation in this space. There's a lot of companies in this category looking for ideas. For venturing, it's a little bit of a different animal. I feel like there's two ways to get that information. One is if you're doing a licensing model, you can create a prototype, you can create a rendering of a product that doesn't even exist, get it on a sell sheet, get a video, file a provisional patent application, and get it out to companies for licensing and just see what they say. Their opinion matters 1,000 times more than mine. For venturing, it's a little bit of a different animal because you're going to be putting a lot more skin into the game. So I feel like it's more critical for you to do your due diligence on that topic, because you don't want to go through all that process and find out, hey, customers don't like my product. So you can do market testing and focus groups and things like that really help.
Right. So for licensing, to license properly, you probably want to have a patent first, correct?
Yeah, the model that I've followed is not to spend all the money on getting a full-blown utility patent, but to file a provisional patent. You can do it relatively inexpensively. I mean, like 60 to 75 bucks. A lot of times you can write them yourself, get some line drawings, and they're fairly easy to file with the USPTO. That gives you 12 months to shop your product around to companies. Then when you get that feedback, you can make tweaks to your product so that when you go to convert that into a full-blown utility patent, you can take all that the feedback and work that into the full-blown patent. I feel
For
like that's a better model for
So,
licensing.
so in terms of this kind of patent, right? Like you said, it's a utility patent, right?
The provisional.
Provisional. So, like for a provisional patent, does it fully cover you? Like, so if you're going to go to a company, it's like a large company, then that like many people have this fear that they're going to go to this company and it's going to go and steal their IP. So if you have this provisional patent, does it cover you from getting your IP taken if you go and present this like a much larger player in the market?
You know what it does? It's a little bit more like a beware of dog sign because you can then put patent pending. Once you file a provisional, you're legally patent pending. You can have that on your sell sheet. The companies you pitch it to don't know exactly what you filed, but like a provisional, like a utility patent, you're not actually fully protected and to the point where you could go after somebody until it's issued. So you can think of a provisional more like potential protection. What it really does is it also locks in your priority date. So it locks in the date you filed. And if you convert that to a utility patent within 12 months, your utility patent can then claim that earlier priority date. So it's important when you have these ideas to get a PPA filed fairly quickly. It doesn't have to be immediate, but good to get that priority date going early.
So would you want to make sure that you have the patent like fully, like the utility patent issued fully before, like, so and I'm going to go to like some larger companies ahead. I'm ready to go and license this. Would I want to do it, as soon as I get a provisional patent, or would I want to wait until I get the utility patent approved just for, like I said, I mean, obviously, anybody who's trying to do this, most people are pretty small. They're not as big as a huge company. So
Hmm.
yeah, what would that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it can take 18 months from the time you file a utility patent until you even get your first office action. So even in a best case scenario, it might be 3 years before you had something issued. A company could have been selling this product for 2 of those 3 years. So I I wouldn't, my recommendation wouldn't be wait. A lot of people do that. They want to wait till they get their utility patent issued and now I'm going to get it out there only to find out, well, nobody wants this or companies aren't calling me back or
Right,
man, I just
right.
spent $15,000. What? And then they learn about provisionals. And they're like, oh my gosh, I could have done this for 60 bucks. Wow. But the other side of that, though, is for the people that do that, when you do pitch to companies for licensing, you are bringing more to the table. You have something that they want. They want an issued
Mm.
utility patent. The deal, though, with licensing is a lot of times companies can give you an advance on royalties to help you pay for a utility patent down the road, or sometimes they'll pay for it.
Right.
So it's my thought, and in my experience, it's good to just get your feet in the water a little bit, get a good sense of what the space is like before you start putting bigger money into it.
That's awesome. So what about when it comes to the international stage? Obviously, there's always been a big problem with, countries like China where they don't really, take into consideration patents. There's like a lot of IP theft, but in other like international markets, like what does that look like to make sure that like if you do really want to have this scale in Australia or Europe or other, parts of Asia or even South America, what does that look like for that kind of patent and that kind of coverage?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's something called the PCT, Patent Cooperation Treaty, and I'm not a patent attorney. I'll do a little disclaimer here. This is just based on my experience, but something called the PCT, Patent Cooperation Treaty, that a lot of patent attorneys kind of like to, if somebody's thinking global, they'll kind of nudge you into that because it's lucrative for them. And I mean, it does protect you, but it's hard to know what markets you're going to be in. So we usually recommend start in the US, file a PPA, get your product in front of some companies, big and small. Everybody thinks of getting into the big 3Ms and the, some of the monstrosities, but a lot of times a smaller to middle-sized company can be better. Find out what is their distribution. How important is it to them that you have patent protection in all these other countries? Because they can also potentially help cover the cost of that.
Right. What about for somebody that, wants to get on Shark Tank? I mean, I've seen obviously deals where they do this kind of licensing. So would it make sense to kind of get some licensing, like a partnership first, or go on there with your idea and then try to get licensing on the show?
Yeah, Shark Tank's such an interesting thing. I would say if you're planning to do Shark Tank, I would show up without having other contracts in place, because you may end up going in a direction that you had, could never have imagined.
Right.
Or, getting a licensing deal with Mr. Wonderful, but it's like, oh, sorry, I got another one over here off to the side. It's gonna potentially be a problem. You want to
Right.
kind of come in without a lot of strings attached to your product, ideally.
For sure. So, like you mentioned that, you kind of started this program recently of working with people who are interested in licensing. So, just from your perspective, like in somebody's journey, would it be a good fit for someone to come and work with you?
Yeah, I think, really, it depends on their goals. I mean, I'm happy to have somebody start with somebody that just has a sketch on a napkin, and I can, I have some online courses too that I have two. One's a very beginner, like, hey, I have this idea and I have no idea what to do with it. Just calibrate my compass and get me pointed to true north.
Yeah.
Have that course. And then another one that's a deeper dive for people that really want to, they have a good sense of how this works and what it's about, but they want to do a deeper dive into things like patent searching and really creating good marketing materials and how does it all work. Or for if somebody has a product they're already selling, maybe they're selling it on Amazon, maybe they're getting a little burnout and it's like, I just want to turn this over to a company that can take it and run with it.
Right.
That would be more of a licensing model. Or someone that's like, hey, I just had 1,000 of these manufactured.
Right.
I'm on Amazon, but I really want to get into retail.
Right.
I can help with all of that too, whether they're trying to get it on Amazon or whether they want to get it into retail distribution.
Makes sense. So obviously, there's been a big challenge here in the US where, in a lot of schools, high schools, colleges, they're not really pushing so much inventing or entrepreneurship. So I don't know kind of like your thoughts on kind of how to get more, young people thinking about inventing or doing like, what you're doing. Have you looked into maybe like, partnerships with universities or high schools? Like, what does that look like to just really get, young people more excited about this?
Yeah, there are some organizations that are doing exactly that, either, connecting or partnering with universities, or I like to start even earlier. If you can get grade school kids following a model that has a step-by-step process, that's fantastic, and I'm open to that. I haven't really jumped into that area. I have, a friend that's doing that, a colleague that is like really targeting kids for inventing. I feel like there's massive opportunity there. There are some schools that are doing a better job at that than others. And I think the ones that are really embracing innovation, it's such an amazing thing because these little minds are so uncluttered, so much creativity just brewing and spooling around. It's like, man. And then it's like maybe at home, it's, they're not getting the support they need, but they have a teacher at school that says, hey, tell me more about, your idea. This sounds amazing. But then to take them through a process where they can literally, pitch products to companies. I've seen that with the help of parents, kids getting licensing deals. It can happen.
Awesome. I like obviously I live in Austin, Texas, right? And there's, I'm not sure if but Austin's one of the cities where they're testing Waymo, right? We have self-driving cars for rideshare, right? And so it's just like an interesting conversation here that people are seeing that more and more jobs are being automated, that there's more automation happening, AI, higher level technology. So how does that come into play when it comes to inventing in 2024, and especially now as we move into 2025?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the more complicated the product, the longer it takes, the more difficult it is, unless someone really has a background in it, or a parent that has a background in it or something. I usually talk about, hey, let's start with something simple. For example, I had a student that had two ideas. One of them was a hoverboard, and the other was like a Halloween decoration. It was really way more excited about the hoverboard. And I'm like, it's super cool, but tell me about your background in aerospace engineering and jet propulsion theory and science. He's like,
Right,
no,
right.
no, none of that. I just thought it was a cool idea. I'm like, it is a cool idea. Let's talk about your Halloween, decoration as a first product to start with. We're not going to throw the other one out, but we're going to just move it off to the side and get you through the process with something simple. So good
Exactly.
start simple, think simple. And sometimes it's hard, even with swat and scoop, that started out way more complicated. A swatter with a built-in scoop, but I had like the sliding mechanism and a trap door and all this other stuff. And I pitched it for licensing. They're like, wow, this is really cool, but it's too big, too much going on.
Right, right.
Give me your minimal viable product. And then I went back to the drawing board and started looking at fly swatter. What could I do to that? And then just stripping. It's so everybody wants to add more. It's like the art of stripping away, which is harder.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've talked to people in this space and I always say it's like, if you don't have instructions, like the simpler it is, the easier it's going to get, it's going to be to get user adoption because, we just like things simpler. If there's just too many mechanisms, too many complexities, people might buy it and return it because they're just confused. Like, how does this product even work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and especially when you're pitching to companies, whether licensing or venturing, which is bringing it to market yourself, when you have your one page sell sheet with a built-in video or embedded video, they're going to look at that and you want them to just get it within 10 seconds. You don't want to have to spend a half an hour explaining it because you've already lost them. So
exactly.
thinking simple and thinking through the other person's perspective, look at it through their eyes, which is hard because when it's our product, we've spent years thinking about it. Our filter is very different than someone seeing it for the first time.
Right.
That's where
So I guess like when you have these partnerships for licensing, I think a concern for some people might be, would this company actually market, or how much will this company actually market my product? So how do you make sure that like the partner you find is like the right partner for you?
Yeah. You're asking some great questions here,
Mhm.
Dan. That's part of the discovery process. As you have your list of companies that you're reaching out to, you're asking them some very specific questions. What are you going to do with this product? What's your rollout strategy? Where is this going to go? I see you're in all these retail stores and you're online. Is this going to go everywhere? Or are you going to start out maybe just online? Or, what does that look like? And then you're just taking feverish notes. Usually one company kind of rises to the surface as like the right company, that's the right fit, the right timing, the right product. They're looking to expand. They really want to get behind the product. They're going to all the trade shows. They're going to push it to get it out there. But sometimes that's where a bigger company isn't always better. If it's like, yeah, we'll license it, but you're going to be kind of on the back burner for a couple of years and we'll get around to it. They probably wouldn't tell you that, but sometimes that happens. So I'm a fan of really asking those questions. What is your plan? What caught your eye about this product? And then just zip it and let them just tell me how great my product is. That always feels good too.
Do you have any say in terms of marketing strategy, direction, things like that?
It depends on the company. Some are happy to have you help them. Like, hey, if you want to do social media posts all day long, if you want to go to the trade shows and join us at our booth, that's great. Others, once they license, like you've given the baby up for adoption. You can't tell us how to dress the child and where he or she needs to go to school. And
Right.
they just want you kind of, we got it from here, don't bug us. So it really depends on the company. Usually the bigger the company, the more they have the system, they have all the distribution, they have the salespeople, they just plug it into the system as another SKU. They don't really need somebody hanging around trying to steer things. They're like,
right. But if it's smaller, then they might, like allow you to be more of a focus.
Yeah. And that question comes up a lot. Some companies really see the value in having the inventor involved. Like, hey, we kind of have this free consultant, free to the point where we're paying royalties, but we're also the profits. They're not on salary, no 401k. We're not giving them vacation pay, but if they're willing to help us, we'll take it. And that could be kind of a cool thing because there is that transition, where it's like people have their product, it's their baby, you know, their pet project, and it's hard to let go. So if they can have a little bit of a hand in it, if that works out, that's awesome.
Exactly. So if somebody watching this wanted to work with you, like what's the best way to get in contact or to join your organization?
For sure. Yeah. Our website is inventors, inventors dash edge.com. That's a great place. That's a great place to reach out. There's a contact me. I think my email is right on the website. We're also on all the socials. I'm on LinkedIn. If you want to look me up on LinkedIn, you can message me, connect. Yeah, Facebook, Instagram. We're starting a YouTube channel and a podcast as well, Inventors Edge podcast. So keep an eye out for that.
Awesome. Well, Scott, thank you so much for your time today.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Dan.